Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Ochakde Show. We're Silicon Valley's first business podcast for teens, hosted by a teen. I'm Sachin Syal. I'm a 17-year-old award-winning entrepreneur and podcaster from the Bay Area, and I interview remarkable and influential entrepreneurs, executives, and investors, and inspiring people from all walks of life so we can learn from their stories and level up ourselves. I'm also the co-founder and CEO of 3doshas.com. We're a lifestyle coaching platform transforming lives through coaching principles inspired by yoga and Ayurveda. The purpose of this show is to inspire you to go for it, which is what Ochakde means. So yep, Ochakde is a Punjabi word and it means go for it, and that's exactly what I want you guys to do. So thank you so much for clicking on this video. Today's special guest, honestly, I don't even need to say his name. You can see him right there. Anthony Pompliano, no introduction needed. I mean, entrepreneur, investor, host of the Pomp Podcast. On his YouTube channel, he posts interviews on like his personal opinions and his particularly like with the focus on technology and finance. He's famous on X with 1.6 million followers and regularly shares his thoughts about business and crypto. So Anthony, welcome to the Ochakde Show, man. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. I've been really looking forward to this conversation. Thanks for being here. What's new and exciting?
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be here, and also commend you for taking the time and effort to put this together, and hopefully it helps you learn a ton along with everyone in your audience. Things that are new, the world is always changing. It's evolving in a really unique way. There's geopolitical conflict in multiple areas around the world. The United States economy is kind of teetering in a really compromised position. National debt is exploding, but at the end of the day, technologists continue to build technology and kind of accelerate and innovate our way out of the problem. And so in some ways, that's new. In other ways, it's a story as old as time. Where I'm spending a lot of my time right now is thinking through what are some of the biggest problems in America, and how can we potentially use entrepreneurship, capitalism, and technology to, if not solve them, at least put a dent in them. And so when you start kind of working through that, you've really got to understand, what the problems are, what are the inputs that created that problem, what are potential solutions, how viable are those solutions, and then where is kind of the best use of your time and capital. And so that's really what I spend a lot of my time doing.
Hey guys, I want to talk about something about my mentor and friend who you may know, Lloyd Lobo, because I actually interviewed him on this show. He released a book that became a Wall Street Journal bestseller. The book is From Grassroots to Greatness, 13 Rules to Build Iconic Brands with Community-Led Growth. He's curated wisdom from both big brands and hyper-growth startups, including Apple, Elysian, CrossFit, Harley-Davidson, HubSpot, Nike, Red Bull, and many more to teach you to build an audience and turn it into a community and movement. I personally find all the art and like the design and format on this book super catchy. I think we can all learn from the graphic design that was used in here and how Lloyd and his team were able to make this a masterpiece. There's a quote by Lloyd that I really like. It goes, yesterday's innovation becomes tomorrow's commodity. But if you build a community, you won't become a commodity. So think about that. That's spot on. I really love that quote. If you want to get a copy, you can go to fromgrassrootstogreatness.com or just go to Amazon and search up From Grassroots to Greatness. Enjoy the episode, guys. 100%. I think it's really good stuff what you're doing because you already have a large social media following, and you're taking that audience and you're also bringing your opinions. I mean, I think you interviewed Vivek Ramaswamy. If you saw the debate the other day, that was pretty awesome. And he's a presidential candidate. So I love what you're doing. You're mixing content creation, business, crypto, the world, politics, everything in one. And that's obviously why you have 1.6 million followers. I need to learn from you. I don't have that many followers at all. But anyways, before we talk about your entrepreneurial journey, today is Veterans Day. I want to thank you for being a veteran and for serving for our nation. So yeah, guy, Anthony was a sergeant in the U.S. Army for over 6 years before becoming, an entrepreneur, investor, content creator. Anthony, how do you think that being a veteran has helped you in your entrepreneurial journey? Because a lot of people say, oh, when you're in the military, you have that locked in mindset and you're just like fully focused, disciplined, commitment, hard work, perseverance, all those types of things. How's that helped you? I'm sure it does, but can you let the audience know?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to always, pull out, hey, I learned this in the military versus I already had that skill, or maybe I learned it afterwards. But I would say that going into the military, usually it's a certain type of person who signs up to go do that, right? It's a volunteer force, and doing it during time of war has someone who usually tends to be more type A personality, tends to be
Mhm.
more of kind of a go getter, a self initiated person. I, was fairly disciplined. I played sports my entire life and grew up in a big family. And so a lot of these qualities, I think, I'd kind of accumulated over time. Now, what I'm positive the military definitely taught me was one, it gave me perspective in a way that you can only get in the military. So I deployed
Okay.
to Iraq. I spent time in Kuwait, went in a number of places around the United States as well. And when you see the kind of these situations, both in terms of being deployed, with a weapon in your hand and a uniform and a flag on your shoulder, you see it through a specific lens. But there's pretty much no other way that I was going to go visit some of these places. And so, the perspective is very helpful. The second thing is that you see the act of war. In that scenario, what ends up happening is now when you look at other geopolitical conflicts, you have a very different perspective, right? I always say people who have been to war never advocate for war. Right, it's the last resort. It's kind of the worst case scenario, and then and only then, when we have exhausted all of our other options, do we want to engage in a war and ensure that we win that war. And so, having that perspective of what does it actually mean is quite helpful when thinking through some of the geopolitical stuff. On top of that, the military did a fantastic job, I think, of training myself and everyone else that I was with on leadership. I was very fortunate to be selected and attend a number of leadership schools in the military. And what you learn is some of the things are, kind of classic things. Hey, take care of the people that, you're leading. Make sure that you're able to clearly identify what is the goal and the mission, and kind of, make sure that you're able to articulate that to the people that you're leading. But some of the things are actually counterintuitive. So, for example, many people think leaders lead from the front. That's true, except for maybe when you're eating, right? And then actually leaders eat last, and you want to make sure that all of your members of your team are fed before you are. And so some of these are, very tactical kind of specific things. Other things are just more broadly. What does it mean to be a good leader? How do you actually go and identify who are the good leaders? How do you learn from them? And then how do you implement those lessons learned both in the military and outside? And so the military experience for me was an incredibly positive one. It's a situation where, when I was young, I didn't think I'd ever do it. Now that I've done it, it's something that for the right person, I think can be amazing. And then for other people, I think there's other ways that they can serve their country. It doesn't necessarily have to be in one of the combat arms, roles either.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. It's an honor to have a veteran and an entrepreneur on the show together. I mean, if the reason I can actually even do this interview, it's 9:10 a.m. My time here in Pacific time, and I don't have school today. It's a Friday because of Veterans Day. So I just want to say that in the interview. So yeah, thank you for everything you've done, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and look, I always remind people that people who were kind of my cohort of the military stood on the shoulders of the people who came before them, right? There are folks in the United States, if you go all the way back, literally to the founding of the country until the modern day, people who have volunteered to stand up and to go fight, whether it's at home or abroad, for something that they believe in. And I think that just understanding, we don't have the country and the society and the economy we have today without those people is always important. And then obviously, there's some folks who, even today continue that tradition, and there'll be folks in the future that do it as well.
I followed you on Instagram and I saw the picture you posted I don't know when it was like a couple days ago, right? With all your friends in that picture. So I'm like, okay, I got to bring this up. It's awesome stuff. Let's talk about the Pomp podcast. Actually, before that, so guys, his name is Anthony Pompliano. We all know that. He goes by Pomp. What do you want to call you during this interview? Should I say Anthony or should I say Pomp?
I don't care, but I get people get offended when I meet them and I tell them that my name, I introduce myself, hey, my name's Anthony, and then later they're like, wait, you're Pomp? Like, who the hell is Anthony? I don't know who that person is. But Anthony is my name, so I don't
I'll call
care.
you Pomp then. I'm just gonna call you Pomp. So Pomp, tell us about the Pomp podcast. Who do you interview and what's the purpose of the show?
Yeah, look, I think that there's been a couple iterations of it, and it's really just as I've personally grown and my interests have expanded. But it started out, it was very much me interviewing people in the finance sector about macroeconomics, Bitcoin, and kind of related topics. It's since expanded to include not only that content, but also a number of business leaders and other types of entrepreneurs, venture capitalists, hedge fund managers, etc. And really, if I was to be completely, kind of pull back the curtain on like, why do I do it? It's because I learned. right? If you think of kind of a podcast, right? If you just saw me on the street and you stopped me and said, hey, I'd like to talk to you, maybe we talk for 2 or 3 minutes, right?
Yeah,
But now when you email me and you say, hey, I got a podcast, I'd like you to come on, like, yeah, sure, the audience is going to listen, but you got me to get on a call with you, right? And so it's a way
exactly.
to incentivize me. Vice versa is there's literally hundreds of people that I've reached out to that I'd never talked to before. And I said, hey, I got this podcast. It's getting big. And if you come on and talk to me, then I'll go and I'll share it with all these other people. It's kind of like a trade. Trade me your time and I'll give you exposure or distribution. And so it's a fantastic way for me to learn, and something that, I covet and always remind myself that it's only possible because the audience listens. And so you got to respect them.
Yeah, I mean, you've interviewed Tim Draper. I interviewed him. You interviewed also, I think you interviewed Vivek Ramaswamy. Like I said, you interviewed Andrew Tate. I know a lot of teenagers know you because of the Andrew Tate interview. But yeah, I think the way you do it is really awesome. The whole in-person setup and everything. I really need to learn from you. And what you just said right now is exactly what I did. I cold emailed you. I said who I was. You replied, said yeah, and then now we're here on this call. How did you find that like passion for podcasting and cold emailing people and getting people on your show? Was it just like you just said, like the win-win, or why exactly did you like start it in the first place?
Yeah, I mean, it's really just a passion for learning, right? And it manifests itself in a bunch of different ways. People are always surprised. I read quite a bit, and they're like, "How do you do that? You've got a family, you've got all these, work responsibilities, you got all the investing, you got the podcast." And it's like, well, I enjoy learning, right? And so I prioritize it. And so rather than watch television, I read. Rather than bullshit, with my friends, I read. And so very similar with the podcast is, okay, reading is one great way for me to learn and kind of gather information. Another great way is talking to people. And so the podcast is a manifestation of being able to do that as often as possible.
Yeah, I want to talk about what you just said right now. Instead of bullshit with your friends and read. I think all the high schoolers I know, a lot of us don't really read that much. I mean, one of my mentors just gave me this book, From Grassroots to Greatness by Lloyd Lobo. I need to start working on this book. But I don't know. Why do you think a lot of young people don't read, and why do they bullshit with their friends instead? Like, why are you different? What was that change in your mindset?
I'm not different. I bullshitted with my friends when I was younger too, right? Like I think that it's just kind of don't compare yourself to me today, right? In
Okay.
my mid 30s with, kind of very specific understanding of who I am as a person, what my interests are, what my goals are, and kind of time management, right? When I
Mhm.
was in high school, I was a horrible student. I bullshitted with my friends all the time. I didn't pay attention whatsoever to anything going on at school. And I essentially lived for right after school going and playing sports. Like that was my life, right? And if you were to look at the person I am today and compare it to the person there, you may see some similarities, right? Maybe the obsessive personality, the desire to want to succeed in the things that I cared about and stuff like that. But also seeing somebody who struggled from an academic standpoint in terms of grades, and then seeing today, what I think a lot of people would suggest is a different outcome in the business world. You just got to understand, like, you're going to grow, you're going to improve. And as long as you're constantly trying to figure it out and you stay diligent and dedicated to it, you will. And so today it's much easier, right? Your friends are doing a lot of cool shit when you're in high school or even
Yeah.
in college. When
Mhm.
you're in your mid 30s, your friends aren't doing that much cool shit. Right. So like, I talk to my friends, I text them, I see them every once in a while, but for the most part, you become more insular, right? And so you spend time with your family, you spend time with those that you work with. And so you just have more time on your hands to be able to go and read, and something I enjoy doing.
But you're doing cool shit right now, and you said you're in your mid 30s. So, how did that work out? Because I think a lot of people think, oh yeah, when you get older in your 30s and 40s, you're not as energetic as a high schooler. But I think you are. So, how's it
Yeah,
different for you?
it's personality, right? So, my wife and I, we host a lot of dinners in our home.
Mhm.
We go and we find usually 6 to 8 people that we think are interesting. They can all be in the same industry, they could be in different industries. We invite them over for dinner, and dinner usually starts at 7 o'clock. Sometimes dinner's over by 10. Sometimes it goes to 1 o'clock in the morning, right? And most people say, "What do you mean that you guys sat there for 5 or 6 hours?" Well, guess what we were doing? We were talking about interesting things, right? And we were
Mhm.
energized by the conversation. So was the other people at the table, and that's amazing. And so when you see that, it really comes down to, like, are you being intentional or not? Right? There's a lot of people who are in the exact same situation I am, and rather than set up that dinner, it takes work, right? It costs money. Like, go get all the food, do all the stuff, whatever, but it's important, right? Because it allows us to be exposed to more people, more ideas, learn, do all these things. And so it's just like anything in life, right? You have kind of this fork in the road. You can get the same experience or the same result everyone gets, by doing the same thing that they do, or you can do something different and try to get a different outcome or a different experience. And so I constantly try to do the different thing because I'm very intentional about the outcomes I'm trying to produce.
I love that. Let's talk about what you talked about was when you were a high schooler, because like 95% of the audience of the Ochakde show are high schoolers. I'm a senior in high school. I just submitted on my college app, so I'm stress-free. That's why I'm so happy today. I finished it like a week ago or something like that, but I'm excited about that. People would assume, Anthony, or Pomp, people would assume, Pomp, that you did really good in school because you're like, I mean, look at all those books behind him. He has all this knowledge in his podcast. He talks about all this like stuff about the world. Do you think you have to be successful in school to be successful as an entrepreneur?
No, and in fact, being successful at school may make you ill-positioned to be successful as an entrepreneur, and maybe being successful at school will set you up to be successful as an entrepreneur, right? There's no kind of one-size-fits-all. I'll give you two examples. So, I've talked about it publicly before. When I was a freshman in college, after the first semester, you get your grades. I was playing football, and I got a 1.8 GPA. And when I got the grades, it's kind of like oh, damn, I have to show my parents this. Like, I'm like, I'm 18, but still, like, my parents are going to be like, what the hell? And, but before I got to my parents, the coaches were pissed. And they're like, dude, what are you doing? Right?
You can't play. Yeah.
And so, I went back, I talked to teachers, I did a little extra work. I was able to bump it up from a 1.8 to like a 2.1. I was like, all right, at least I'm in the twos, right? Like I got out of the ones on for the semester. Like I should be okay. But the reason, why I talk about that now is after that semester, I realized, hey, I got to get my stuff together here, right? I can't be screwing around. There's a chance, not only could I not play football, but I mean, you do that enough times, like they may kick you out of school. Yeah. And so what ended up happening was I had to convince myself why this is interesting. And so that's really where I started to spend more time on economics and sociology, kind of geopolitical things, et cetera. It's like I was always interested in that. But if you go back to high school, they don't really teach you that much about it. Right? Maybe you have one economics class, but it's not like you can take a ton of them, right? There's not really a ton of, let's say, geopolitical type related classes. Maybe there's a world government or something like that, type class. And so as I started to understand what I was interested in, what I wasn't, I gravitated towards those topics, obviously, because I was interested and I paid more attention. I was reading about it in my free time and started to do better. And so I do think that you want to kind of have this generalist approach to the world, right? I would like to sit down and I can debate in great detail the nuances of Bitcoin. I can do the same thing for the Federal Reserve. Those two things are highly related. But then I can go and I can talk to you about the nuances of geopolitical conflict and Russia and Ukraine and Israel and Hamas, right? And all of a sudden you're like, well, how can you do all of that? I'm interested in it. Right. And sometimes those things are related, sometimes they're not. But being able to have a generalist perspective and an inherent curiosity is a really important thing. And so I think young people kind of get indoctrinated. They get beat down. It's like, hey, just learn the things we taught you to learn. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. Don't go look for this other stuff. And what you really find is, what is an entrepreneur? An entrepreneur ultimately is just a problem solver. And so if you find a problem and you can solve it, you probably can make money. Like that's it. Yeah. And that insight, frankly, took me a while. It wasn't until I was a senior in college that I realized, wait a second, I could like start my own company rather than go and work at another business, right? And once I started to understand, like, this is all about problem solving, then like, okay, go find the problem and learn to solve it. And what most people do, right, high school, college, when you talk to them about they want to start a company, they only tell you solutions to problems that they've experienced. So it's like dating apps, find a bar, right? Things that are just inherently experiences that high school or college kids have. But then when you go talk to a 40 or 50-year-old, they've got this whole different view, and the dating app, they don't even know anything about dating apps because I've been married for 20 years, right? And so it really is about like, what problems do you uniquely see that you can go and try to have a hand in solving? And so if somebody is interested in, I don't know, some very nuanced aspect of whether it's artificial intelligence or something in the environment or whatever, go learn as much about that as you possibly can. And if you can really understand what is the problem here and then start to think about, okay, how could I solve this? That is really the art of entrepreneurship, is creating solutions for these problems. It's not some sort of, super sexy, like hidden secret. Oh my God, I've got to go talk to, the king of entrepreneurship and get their blessing to then be able to go start a company. It's just go solve problems and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
It truly is an art. I mean, this type of stuff, all the type of stuff you're talking about, and like the fact that I get to meet people like you is this type of stuff that keeps me up at night, and then it like wakes me up in the morning as well. I just find it super fascinating, right? You can just, like what you said, take a problem, figure out a way how to solve it, make a company out of it, help others, and make money for yourself at the same time. Such a cool combination. So Pomp, you mentioned this word many times in this discussion before I brought it up. You said Bitcoin a lot. Obviously, we know you're a big fan of crypto. We got to talk about that. That would not be a good interview if Pomp does not share his thoughts about crypto. Um, how has it helped you, and how has it helped other people you know? Then also, you're a crypto influencer, right? I think a lot of people, especially when I talk to my friends at school, they say, "Dude, Sachin, like, I know crypto's really cool, but after the whole like SBF stuff, like the Sam Bankman-Fried guy, like the whole credibility might go down." So as an influencer yourself, how can you like revive the like this is like legit stuff and can actually help you? Like, what are you doing about that right now?
Yeah, I mean, first, if you just try to approach everything from a first principle standpoint, right? Which is take Bitcoin as an example. What is it, right? It's a decentralized digital currency. Why is that important? Well, it's something that it has a programmatic monetary policy. It isn't controlled by any one person or group, and it can't be changed by any one person or group. Okay. Does that solve a problem in the world? Yes. We have every other currency in the world has a completely 180-degree different monetary policy, control system, etc. And so it is the definition of being different and appears to be right. So if you're different and right, that's where kind of asymmetric returns are. And so, that really is kind of a key piece to it. Now, on top of that, I think there is some people who are concerned with or interested in like the public conversation, the like influence of certain people in the industry, and even the financial returns that are gathered from the assets. I'm not really interested in that stuff, right? And so in terms of, if people think that the industry is not legitimate, that's their problem, right? Like, guess what ends up convincing them? The same thing that convinced me is it worked. I went and I looked at the technology, and the technology works, right? It kept getting more adoption. It kept sucking people into, hey, this is something that's valuable and worth your time, energy, and effort. And so it's kind of like, the asset doesn't care what the individuals think. And the market is proving that, where at the same time that people for this entire year probably have been like, oh, this industry doesn't have that much legitimacy, Bitcoin's up 120% for the year. Right. And so it's kind of like you can either try to, predict what's going to happen in the future, or you can look at what the market is telling you. And the market is telling you it's obviously something that's valuable. And so when I start to think about, where is there really going to be an impact from something like Bitcoin, I think that there are kind of two different stories. There's the story in the United States and kind of the developed world, and then there is a story in underdeveloped nations. And in underdeveloped nations, there tends to be things like censorship resistance, seizureship resistance, and then even currency debasement. Are things that they are able to address. In the United States, if I go to the ATM, I can get $20 out. It works like clockwork every single time, right? I don't worry about the bank stealing my money. I actually don't really worry usually that much about inflation. But in a high inflation environment like we just lived through, I think people now are increasingly worried about this stuff. And so what Bitcoin allows for is a return of savings technology. You can simply continue to save in this hard asset, and that asset will over time increase purchasing power versus a dollar that depreciates purchasing power. Guess what else does that? Real estate. Right? Yes, real estate can go up and down in the short, 1, 3, 5 years, but over 20, 30, 40, 50 years, real estate continues to go up because the dollar gets devalued. And so if you just look at these things from a first principle standpoint, you kind of get to the point where you're like, wait a minute, it's not like, will this work? It's like, wait, why do you think it wouldn't work? Right? You almost become the default is that Bitcoin is going to be an important part of the world in the future. And, if you're a senior, you're probably somewhere between 16 and 18 years old. And that means that, I don't know, maybe freshmen in high school and below have never lived in a world without Bitcoin, right? Their entire life, Bitcoin's been around. For me, right, the first 20 something years of my life, Bitcoin wasn't around. And so when you think of it from that perspective, you're like, okay, my generation's like, why is this new thing going to work? But the next generation's like, well, this thing's been here forever.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? They don't know any better. And so I think that there's a bunch of things that are pointing to the fact that over time it will continue to be, quite successful and gaining more adoption.
Yeah. I agree, because I remember when I was in 6th grade, nobody really talked about it. My 6th grade teacher in elementary school was teaching us about crypto. And that guy, I reconnected with him. He's like, yeah, it helped me buy my house. He's like, I invested when you were in 6th grade, and it helped me buy my house because I invested in Bitcoin that early. I said, damn, you're a legend, man. So it has been around for a long time. All the knowledge and all like the financial knowledge you just dropped right now on my like show. You have your own YouTube channel where you explain similar things and you talk to other people about it, right? You've been able to what is it, like over 500,000 subscribers on YouTube, millions and millions of views. For aspiring content creators like myself, how were you able to do that? I know a lot of people just say it's just like pure knowledge and like growth and natural growth, but do you have any like secret strategies that you were able to use that like significantly helped you grow your audience?
I mean, I think there's really two things, right? There's like qualitative and quantitative. So qualitatively, like, are you sharing information that is unique? And if you just share the same information as everyone else, then you're not necessary. But if you can share unique information, that tends to be kind of a higher probability of being successful. On a more quantitative standpoint, YouTube's algorithm is very clear. It's the click-through rate plus the average view duration equals growth. So if lots of people click on your video and they watch towards the end, you grow. And so when you look at that, it's like, can you create unique information in a video that has a high click-through rate and a long average view duration? If you do those three things, then you'll grow your channel. And people are just like, wait, it can't be that easy. Like, no, literally that's it. Now it's hard to execute, but the formula itself is not nearly as hard as most people think.
Yeah. I need to learn a lot from you on that because I really need to grow my channel. It's been actually going pretty well. I mean, I started in January 2022 and I'm not a full-time content creator. I'm still a student and I do my company on the side with my parents and my brother as well. But I mean, 160,000 views, 5 sponsors. I'm pretty proud of myself for that. And I need to learn a lot from you on that. Let's talk about who you invest in because you're an investor. I love investors. I mean, venture capitalists, angel investors, all that type of stuff is so cool. Think about it. You're helping a growing entrepreneur and you're making them successful while also helping yourself at the same time. Such a beautiful thing. So who do you invest in? Why do you do it? And like, how does it work?
I invest in all types of people. We've invested in young people based in the United States. We've invested in old people based internationally and everyone in between. Usually what I'm looking for is I'm looking for somebody who is, in my mind, a winner, right? And a winner is you can give them any set of challenges and they're going to figure it out. And so that could be if they were given a new sport to go play, and they never played it before, don't know any of the rules, within 4 weeks, they could go and play in like a local league and be pretty good at it, right?
That's you. That's you.
They're a winner.
That's you.
I think that it's just, it's a certain type of person for sure, right? And so you're trying to find that person who I just call them like winners. And when you find winners, you want to back them, right? And sometimes that's you back them with advice. Sometimes you back them with money. Sometimes you just want to cheer for them, right? And whatever it is, you want to find winners and make sure that you can do everything you possibly can to help them be successful. The second thing you want to do is you want to find people who are resilient, because although in the beginning it seems like a lot of fun, building a company is really hard, right? We have companies that everything's going right and they just get punched in the face, right? We have one business where it was profitable every single month from launch for almost 2 years, and then went almost a year without being profitable. It's not fun, right?
How did that happen?
You got to go fix problems. There's a bunch of stuff, market conditions, people, products, don't work, all kinds of things. But you got to go fix the problems, right? And you got to dig in and go and say, hey, look, I could just give up or I could go fix it. So I think that's a huge piece is resilience. And then you need what I just call like salesmen, right? And what I mean by salesmen is you need people who can sell because they need to be able to recruit people. So how do you recruit high quality people to your thing? You need to sell in terms of how do I get enough capital to be able to go do this thing? And then you need to sell in order to be able to get sales, right? Contracts, get people to buy the thing that you have. And so you need to have communication skills. You need to be, somewhat charming. You need to be somewhat, authoritative in the way that you're able to deliver information and things like that. And so if you can find winners, right, who have resilience and are good salespeople, then you've got a shot. And so that's kind of one, big thing is like, who are you investing in? The second thing is increasingly throughout my career, I look for things that are more and more ambitious. Like I'm actually not that excited about backing B2B software anymore. In the beginning, I was like, hey, we're gonna make money. And I didn't have a lot of money and I needed to make money, right? And so it was like, okay, if you're gonna make money, then like I want to be I want to be involved. Now I just think about it as if I back somebody who's doing B2B software, I gotta spend time on it. Is this really how I want to be spending my time? Do I really care about this B2B software vertical? No. So like, I'm not just going to make an investment in it because I think I can make money. I want to go put capital to work in areas that I'm interested in that I think could really change the world. And so that's where I spend most of my time.
That's awesome. I think all VCs and angel investors look for those winners because you have to obviously invest in the right entrepreneur and make sure like, I know you're friends with Mr. Wonderful, and he probably also he knows all this stuff on Shark Tank too. Whenever someone pitches on Shark Tank, they have to make sure that person's actually a winner, and they ask them all those questions on the spot. If they can't reply with something that the sharks like, then they probably won't get like any offer or anything like that. As we wrap up here, Pomp, these are the last two questions that I asked all my guests. The first one is, what's your best advice for teens?
Best advice for teens. Throughout your life, people are going to try to convince you not to take risk, not to be ambitious, and not to bet on yourself. And what you have to remind yourself is that you can never, ever, ever let anyone believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And you will question it at times. People that you love, people that you trust, will constantly try to get you to lower your ambition, lower your risk tolerance, and not bet on yourself. But everything you want in life, from financial freedom to happiness to the flexibility to do whatever you want in the world, stands on the other side of those three things. Is being willing to bet on yourself, being willing to take risks, and being ambitious. And so you just constantly have to fight the entropy and also fight the external forces that will convince you not to do that stuff.
Yeah, should have added it in the intro, that you're also a motivational speaker. I love that. That was spot on. I love that. No, it's actually inspiring for all the young people watching. I mean, all the stuff that you've been able to achieve, from like veteran to multimillionaire entrepreneur to now like giving back to 17-year-olds like me and coming on my podcast. You didn't have to, so thank you for that. Last question of the day. What was your favorite part of being on the Ochakde show here today?
Your energy. I can tell that you enjoy doing this. You're enthusiastic about it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's frankly the most important thing is enthusiasm is contagious. And so the more enthusiastic you are, then you'll find that your friends become more enthusiastic, your parents, your family, right? People you come in contact with. And, you know, I always think about it in terms of, if I can be enthusiastic throughout the day because I'm doing the things that I really enjoy doing, hopefully that rubs off. Hopefully it is contagious. And then those people go and they do the same thing. And that's what we need in the world, is we just need people to be kind of more excited and more ambitious and believe that they can actually make a dent in whatever the thing is that they're doing. And if everyone was to kind of level that up, we'd be in a better spot.
I agree. It's spot on 100%. Well, thank you so much, Pomp, for being on the show today. Anything else? Anything you want to say at all before we hit that end record button?
No, thank you for doing this. That's it. I think awesome. There's a lot of people who are learning from it, so I'm glad that you're doing it.
There are, and I appreciate you coming on today. I learned a lot. Whenever I always rewatch the recording and then see like, oh, and then I'll reach out to you, maybe ask you questions, something like that. But I'm glad I have a new mentor in my life. I could always reach out to you, reply to emails pretty fast, which is pretty awesome. So thank you for that. And yeah, happy Veterans Day. Actually, anything you're doing special today for like your day?
Working. The most important thing, working. I work every day.
Nice. Every single day? Even the weekends?
Yes.
Nice. Well, I mean, the world probably already knows that. I mean, you go on, Fox News all the time, talk about your knowledge, and yeah, this is awesome stuff, man. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
You got it.
I'll see you next time. Bye, Pomp.